What are some things that you guys that you're at a place in life now that there's some things that just don't matter anymore that used to really matter a lot to you? Anybody got any thoughts on that?
Well, I do. I don't know if I'd say doesn't matter completely anymore, but I really think in terms of accomplishing things and looking for other people's praise or accolades, I'm not going to say that that's not still there some, but it's there a whole lot less. What really matters is that my family is taken care of, and that you walk in life with the Lord, and that's changed a whole lot, at least in my life.
Yeah, I think my mind kind of goes the same place with positional leadership. Like there was a time where that really mattered to me. I would kind of move toward it because it was I don't know, the accolades or whatever, but positional leadership, it's like I don't even care about that anymore. It just doesn't matter. But it's like I don't need to be important, but I want to do something important. That I still have passion for.
Yeah.
Right? I want to do something important. But I don't need to be important in the process. Right.
I think that right there is one of the big things. I think that Bobby Clinton, when you talk about those transitions, especially around the time that a guy, and I think it's true for women too. But we'll let the women speak for themselves. So we don't want that responsibility around this table. We'll speak for ourselves. I know for guys. And this was the thing that Bobby Clinton taught, was that transition, especially around 40. A lot of times guys will feel like they're going through a midlife crisis, which is not. It's a natural transition that you're going through. And he talked about the difference of going from success to significance. And that's what you just said. You just said it. And how did you put it?
I don't need to be important, but I do want to do something important.
I like that. I like that language. Because when you're a young warrior, you're a young buck, man, you're like, I'm going to go
Let me show you how.
That's right. That's right. And so it's now, I know for me, I just kind of call it the sanctified, I don't give a rip. But it's not like an arrogant, like I don't give a rip what they think or whatever. It's a restful, like if you're happy with what I do, that's great. If you're not, that's not going to affect me. I want to serve him and I want to be content in him. Boy, so much weight comes off you at that stage.
I don't think I don't ever want to get to the place where things don't matter.
Sure.
Yeah, like I still want to feel like things matter. Like, because I think you could get in a mode, and I think I've seen people that get in a mode where they're not really putting out. They're just not putting out. They just gave up on the whole process, and they won't put themselves out there. And maybe their whole motivation was to be noticed in the past. So maybe that's why they can just give up on the whole pursuit,
Well, things still matter at this stage. It's just there's an evolution of what matters.
That's good.
And the two things that came to my mind, it really is echoed in what you guys have already said, but the first thing that comes to my mind would be the biblical phrase, the praises of men. I feel like in the early days, and I would also say the praises of men and stages. In my Christian tradition, there was always a stage, and there's a stage in a lot of Christian expressions. And so you look at that and you begin to visualize around that. That's what successfully doing something that matters is supposed to
That's the guy I want to be.
Yeah.
That guy.
And I'll be on a stage when I'm successfully doing what I perceive matters at some point. And turned 50 this year, and I realized that I don't care about stages anymore, and I don't care about trying to please or get the approval of the wrong people.
That's good too. The wrong people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it, because
Yeah.
things still matter.
Yeah.
It's what matters has evolved, and I would say for me at least has really matured. And my life looks significantly different than the young Royce thought it would look like as pertaining to approval and stages and all of that.
And don't you think too that like you used to get a little attitude when somebody didn't buy into you, you know? Whereas now I think you get a little grace. Like you just have a little grace for you. You know the path that they're traveling. You're like, I get it why you don't get me. And that's cool, you know.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that, you know. You're on a journey and you don't have to like me, you know.
Yeah. And I'm not getting bent over that.
Right. Not an attitude.
Yeah.
You just kind of lose that too.
Yeah.
There's a security
Yes,
that begins
security.
to come.
And there's such a restfulness in it too. There is such it's like all that weight comes off of you of trying to perform or trying to be this or be that or be noticed, or, you know, it's just, and I tell you one of the things that is funny though, I'd be interested if you guys have noticed this with social media, like Facebook. Well, first off, you know, what's amazing about Facebook was this was a social media platform for college kids. Well, and then the boomers totally took it over and the college kids left. They don't even use, I mean, you know, most millennials, they're not even on there anymore. So we ripped it off, we stole it from them, you know. And now it's like, I'm amazed at so many, the selfie craze for people that should be more mature than, it's like, I'm seeing guys like, you know, taking pictures still with the mirror, you know, like flexing and stuff. It's like, and you'll see some of these. It's like, dude, it's over. Take a look at that picture you just took. It is, the ship has sailed, man.
Yeah.
Don't post that.
Yeah.
And they still post it.
Right.
And I was looking at some of a friend yesterday. He was posting selfies, and I'm like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? It's like you're creating a portfolio that you're going to have your agent take around to help you get parts or something. So, so Royce, really, you need to take those down.
Yeah. I received that. I accept that each and have that today. Well, I think really we're living in a world where, you know, values and sets of values are in such flux, you know, and for men in their 50s or approaching their 50s, right, that what do I really care about? What really matters? Is it the flex selfie?
Right.
Who am I? What am I doing that for?
Yeah.
And I think we all should flex, but it's like, does your flex matter? And I feel like at this point in my life, it's been distilling away a lot of chaff, wood, hay, stubble, that didn't really amount to anything, but I thought it was so important. And then now it feels that it's refining what really is going to make a difference. And I would echo, it's been my family. This season has been making sure that my family knows that they are the absolute top priority in my world. They are everything to me. And historically, that wasn't the case as it should have been.
Yeah.
I think another way to ask the question is not what matters, but who matters,
Come on.
and how we reframe that who.
Yeah.
Because when we start out young, we're thinking about the who, or we can think this is the who that matters are the peers who are seeing that I'm accomplishing something or that I'm doing something great, you know, and we sometimes get that confused with the who related to the family and really our care for them, whether you're married or you have kids, you know, that's a really important who. And I think as we figure that out, and you know, you go through like you said, you go through the stages of life and you get a little older, and you start to realize that when that who is prioritized, the impact that has on then the community at large and the different places you're going to, that's like exponential, you know, if we can get that right. And then then the who related to your relationship with the Lord. I mean, like you said, I don't have to be important, but I want to do something important. Well, prioritizing him is the who in the closet, just being with him. I personally don't believe that I think it's impossible to spend time with him and not do something important. And what that looks like, though, is what we view as important is not necessarily what he views as important.
Yes.
Because if I spend a lot of time with him and he says, you know what, Brian, I want you to impact just one person your whole life, well, if I'm engaging with him in that relationship, that's what we're going to do together. I view that. I don't know if that's right, but I view that as that was something important. I got to be with the Lord, my life, and be with him.
Yeah.
It's the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think, and we all experience this raising our kids at this stage in life that we're at. Once you get, especially like when you become an empty nester, which you're close to it, you're like right there at it. We're at it.
Trying to get there, right?
Trying to get there.
They'll fill back up. They'll come back.
Yeah.
But we all heard this as young dads. We would have older guys look at us and go, "Man, you better enjoy this time with your kids because this goes like this." And we're like, "Yeah." And then we woke up one morning and we're looking at a young guy going, "You better enjoy this because it's going to go like this." Yes. It is so. Is it crazy true that time with those kids? And I remember this time we were building a house. So Sherry and I were building a house. Our kids were from their early teens to, I think our son, he's the oldest. He was probably 14 or 15. And so we were building this little hobby farm, building this house. And I'm just blowing and going like every day's the last day, you gotta. And so this is a regret. I remember Jordan, our son, he wanted to build a tree house. And so he is grabbing scrap wood and stuff and kind of going out in the woods and doing his best to cobble together this tree house. And I, I never missed a game. I never missed any of that stuff with my kids. I tried to be really present and all that, even all the years that I was pastoring and this and that. But that tree house, I never took one day.
You're still emotional about this, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm trying to stay on the ledge right now.
You should have paused.
I never took one day.
Yeah.
Now he never said anything to me about it or anything, but I remember when we left, when we moved, and I mean, no one ever knew it, but I went out and sat in that treehouse. Should have been there. You cannot get that back. You can never get that back.
Yeah.
And so
I don't even know your son. I'm about to cry,
Yeah, and my son is so Jesus-y that he's not bitter. I guarantee you, he would say, "Oh, I didn't think anything about that," but I did, and those moments are platinum. And so I would say to young dads, man, take that day. Wow. You will regret not getting that time back.
You do get a chance though when your grandkids come along to redeem yourself.
You would get to make it up for that.
Big time, and that's so fun.
Yeah.
That is so fun. And it's a blessing to your kids too, to be able to pour back in
Yeah.
to their kids.
Right.
And they're like looking at you.
To drop them off and they can go out and
Yeah.
get it right.
And they're looking like, who is this
Right.
guy that is, you know,
Yeah.
who is this
Where were
guy?
you 25 years ago?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But I want to echo that. I would trade so many things that I thought were important for a few more moments like that with my kids, which I'm thankful.
Yeah.
They're good young adults, but looking back, those things I realize how much more they matter
Yeah.
than where my mind was
Yeah.
at the time.
And we even know, and I would say now this is even, there was a major move when I resigned position and we made a several state move that I regret too because of the age of our kids. And
Disrupted them
It
for
was
the
it
key
wasn't
time.
fair to them, and now I mean the Lord, brings everything together. He works things out for good.
Yeah.
But it wasn't right. It wasn't fair to them. On my 60th birthday, I gathered them around, and in fact, when we made a move out to that farm, when we did that, we moved them pretty far out of the city, and it wasn't right. We shouldn't have done it. And I apologized to the kids on my 60th birthday, and just told them that I knew it was painful for them. And so we were kind of all crying that day. But these are things, man, I wish I would have known. But it was that, like, we're going to build a nice house for you. These kids, they would
Not
much rather
friends,
have
yeah.
a little house in the suburbs around their friends. Yep. Like, hey, when we leave, you and mom go out and build your stinking farmhouse and enjoy it, But that's another thing I think that young parents need to think is there's different stages for different things, right?
Yeah.
And your dream's not always your kid's dream.
Right.
And you don't get a chance to go back.
Kids get real nostalgic about your routines and some of the basic things of life, And I always think it's so healthy for men who have they're going to take a week off and go hunting, and their kids and grandkids and cousins and whatever go. That's the stuff of life.
Yeah,
right
making
there.
those
Yeah.
memories.
Sticking to those things and those routines and those cyclical things that come back around every year. That's so valuable too.
Yeah.
I didn't do that enough. I mean, I just worked my tail off.
Yeah, same.
And
It's a bit of a crime, isn't it?
yeah. Yeah, I just did not do that enough. Yeah, I have that regret too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a nobility in providing.
Sure.
But then we still, it's almost, you can set your clock by it. You get to this stage in our life and you're like, what could I have? I know I could have done. I could have still provided. I'm getting emotional now. I could have still provided and also provided in some ways that I overlooked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they say after $75,000, really your lifestyle and
Yeah.
doesn't matter that much. You've got the basics, right? $75,000.
Yeah.
And then we're chasing,
Right. Right.
Yeah, that sounds like,
Well, and I would echo in that there was looking at the maturity that I have now at the lack of maturity I had then, which is a part of the progression. There was still too much me in my needs that I could justify the virtue of providing. That's a
Right.
big lofty thing, right? And so you kind of blanket some areas where I was just undeveloped. I wasn't growing. I wasn't as tuned into their needs, because we could have made that work had I been more aware of
Right.
their needs instead of my need.
Yeah.
sort of like pork
significant,
barreling in politics,
Yeah.
like the pork barrel thing,
Yeah.
where you justify a lot of things.
Yeah. Just
Add
add
all
on
that.
to it.
Right.
I like that though, the nobility of providing. We get a lot out of that. Men need to feel that, I think.
Yeah.
Sure.
They need to feel that.
We're wired for it, but
Yes.
but I can hide a lot of immaturity, and did, in my provision. And you see that as you grow and look back, it doesn't. Some of that didn't matter.
So you have to make yourself rest. It's the whole principle. Not to dive off on an entirely different subject, but the whole principle of Sabbath is that you just stop You know, like you got to have these stopping points and cyclical stopping
But
points.
isn't what you said, you just said you have to make yourself rest. Isn't it interesting in Hebrews when it talks about it? It says labor to enter into that rest,
Labor.
Labor to enter in the rest.
which
yeah.
is like an oxymoron.
Yeah.
Work really hard
Right.
to rest.
Yeah.
Because it is a psychological trip.
Yes.
You have to work to talk yourself into, hey, stop it.
Right,
Just
and then
stop, be
how
still.
much of, as you move past that point where you should stop, how much of it is back to, this goes beyond the nobility of providing, and it's just really about me.
Yeah.
It's about me trying to earn something,
Right.
be important,
Right.
prove something.
Right, I'm trying to slide that in
Yeah.
there. There's that pork barrel.
Pork barrel.
Well, my need for significance, and that's where the thing is to work to enter into rest. Well, we are wired to be providers, but it's not just money, and it's not just shelter.
Right.
Oh, there you go.
It's providing my time.
Yeah.
It's providing memories and experiences.
Yeah.
Instead of out working, justifying that. I can provide some other things.
Like
that
we're all
others
preaching
don't.
to ourselves, so we need to have a little altar service here.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, well, what about hunger though? Because this is something that, so I end up working alongside a lot of different people, and there's this, like, I have a value for hunger, and what I mean by that is when you're working and when you're applying yourself, and are you being diligent in what you've been handed? Are you taking the bull by the horns? So there's this piece of having what I think is a good virtue of having hunger, but then you gotta figure out how to manage that, or how to temper that in some ways. And I guess I'm talking out loud here, but I guess it kind of depends too on how you're wired and whether or not you had developed the hunger. Because when I was young, I had hunger from a young age, and hunger in the good sense, where
Drive is what you're talking about.
yeah,
Right.
drive. I like that word.
Just like this inner need. Well, need, I don't know what it is. It's just like it's a calling, I think,
I think we all have it to some degree. It's just that's part of the formation spiritually, is the desires. We all are going to have them, and they are kind of like the operating system of our life to a great degree, values and therefore desires, because our desires are driven by our values, but those need to be shaped, right? And so it's like I look back and go, man, I wish I had leaned into some of the shaping process in some of my desires earlier.
But there's just really no way to roll the tape back. There's no way to roll the tape back, and there's no way to know it in the moment that you're
Absolutely.
messing
Right.
up. You just
Right.
just have to
But we
go through
pass
the
it on to
process.
whoever's watching this to really
Yes.
think about some of the things you think are so important right now.
Right.
What in the pork barrel is tucked away in there that later, just a little word right now, Mike could adjust.
Right.
course correction.
It's like the initial question: what doesn't matter anymore?
Yes.
Right.
And there
So maybe you can assess that earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Galatians 2:20. So it's my favorites. If I could only have one verse, Galatians 2:20 is it. But in the Message, Eugene Peterson's The Message, I want you to hear this, and this kind of summarizes like what doesn't matter anymore. He said, I tried keeping rules and working my head off to please God, and it didn't work. So I quit being a lawman so that I could be God's man. Christ's life showed me how and enabled me to do it. I identified myself completely with him. Indeed, I have been crucified with Christ. My ego is no longer central. It is no longer important that I appear righteous before you or have your good opinion. And I'm no longer driven to impress God. That kind of describes the first half of my life, is living
Yeah.
to appear righteous and try and impress God.
Yeah.
And
I think that describes a lot of guys' first half of life.
My brother-in-law, a master orator, one of his life messages that a lot of people remember him preaching was, what kind of old man do you want to be?
Oh, that's great.
What kind of old man do you want to be? That's a good question.
No, that's a really good question. That might be our next subject.
There you go.
Hey, I like it. That's a good talk, guys. Good visit.
Good stuff. I need another cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
We'll get another one.